Cassie wins. Fatality.
I'm going to preface this review by stating right now that I am not a fighting game expert. If you want an in-depth analysis of the mechanics of Mortal Kombat X, this is not the place for you to find that information. Instead, I'll be tackling Mortal Kombat X from the perspective of a regular gamer who has an interest in a variety of game genres, including fighting games, but is by no means a seasoned fighting game player. Look, despite the DLC and microtransaction models present and accounted for in NetherRealm's latest outing, I have to say Mortal Kombat X is a good game. It's extremely polished, content-rich for the most part, visually impressive, and a genuinely fun time. But the DLC practices are egregious, and if they break the deal for you, I won't be surprised. Set 20 years after the events of Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat X sees both Earthrealm and the Outworld fighting against Shinnok, who seems to escape from the Netherrealm, where it was trapped by the Elder Gods to essentially destroy everything. Pretty generic premise, I know, but thankfully the vivid personalities of the characters assist in making the story more entertaining, even if it is extremely predictable and ends so anticlimactically. I'll say this right now, for a fighting game, Mortal Kombat X's campaign is actually quite solid. It's extremely short at only 4 hours and filled to the brim with cutscenes, but I honestly can't see how they could have done a better job, given that the story has to accommodate one-on-one fighting. It's not like The Order, where they definitely could have done better. However, the fucking quick time events will not be overlooked here. I don't understand who had the bright idea to implement quick time events into a fighting game, but that person ought to receive a drastic pay cut. QTEs have no place in a fighting game built from the ground up around fighting. It makes no sense. Now, aesthetically, Mortal Kombat X is an impressive looking game. The character designs are well detailed, the animation is top notch, the environments are varied and colourful, and it all runs at 60 FPS, at least most of the time. For some unexplained reason that I will never be able to wrap my head around, the intros, menus, X-rays, attacks, and fatalities run at 30 FPS, and it's so jarring. But as a fighting game, what matters most is the gameplay, and I'm happy to report that MKX is an extremely fun fighting game. It's accessible in many ways as it doesn't have as much of an emphasis on combos as a game like Killer Instinct, but there's still a learning curve that allows more experienced players the ability to pull off some impressive combos and juggles. However, gameplay-wise, it's important to note that MKX is very similar to MK9. Aside from the addition of individual character variations and the new graphics, you'll be hard-pressed to tell the games apart. They look the same in motion and play very similarly. Don't get me wrong, the game is fun, but if you didn't like Mortal Kombat 9 or got tired of it, you probably won't enjoy Mortal Kombat X either. Don't be mistaken though, MKX does tout some gameplay improvements over MK9. I personally like this roster more than the previous game. They picked the right number of characters to return, and a lot of the new characters are really cool and distinct. My personal favourite new character is Cassie Cage, though I bet you the fucking social justice elite still don't think that she's a good character because she's too attractive. The variations were a plain great idea. Each character has 3 variations that change how individual characters are played. For example, one variation could place heavy emphasis on close-range melee attacks, while another variation could increase a character's effectiveness from range, so playing the same character doesn't necessarily equate to the same playstyle. The game modes are also really great. Test Your Luck is just plain awesome. Crazy modifiers are selected at random and added to the match like Acid Rain, Magnetic Floors, or no blocking. The addition of these modifiers to what would otherwise be standard matches often create genuinely formidable challenges to face. I'm also a fan of the new challenge tower system. There are the standard tower structures, just like we saw in MK9, but MKX offers constantly evolving challenge towers that change regularly on a weekly and daily basis. These towers also incorporate some of the elements from Test Your Luck, and provide much needed variety to what is otherwise a stock standard mode in fighting games. With all that said, online is clearly the main attraction here, but many people have been reporting issues with the online component. I know a lot of people are complaining about the lag, saying hit detection is poor and that matches constantly drop, but I've been having more issues with the faction system. On paper, the faction system is a really interesting idea. Players choose a faction, and every time they play the game, they contribute points to their faction, and each of the 5 factions compete to be on top. It sounds great, and it probably is, but I've yet to be able to connect to most of the faction-related content for some inexplicable reason. Every time I try, there's a server issue or some nonsense. Now, the PC version has been plagued with a myriad of issues which I can't cover since I bought the PS4 version. I'm also aware that PS4 digital copies of Mortal Kombat X have been bricking after patch 1.02, which is just mind-blowing. This patch also very temporarily changed the UI in the character select screen to show Jason Voorhees, a DLC character, but I'll be talking about that later. When you are in an online match though, it generally is enjoyable. Unfortunately, matches can quickly deteriorate into projectile spam shitfest. People love spamming Ermax range attacks and katana stupid fucking fan blades. And if you're fighting Scorpion and you don't hear "get over here" at least 20 times, you are not playing MKX online. In matches where you aren't facing off against an unbearable prick, that's when the gameplay really starts to shine. Watching other people execute long combos while soul crushing at first motivates you to learn the game better and start pulling off those insane combos as well. And when that happens, it's such a satisfying feeling. There's nothing quite like pulling off an insane combo or a fatality against a real life opponent. When it works, the online is solid. Speaking of which, we can't talk about Mortal Kombat X without talking about fatalities. Holy shit, the fatalities are awesome in MKX. It really amazes me how creative the fatalities have become. We went from Liu Kang doing a somersault in the original to tearing people's throats out and shoving them back in their mouths. These fatalities and the new in-game brutalities kick serious ass and make winning matches that much more satisfying. The X-ray attacks, on the other hand, are a different story. They're cool to watch play out the first few times, but after seeing the exact same animation dozens of times doesn't carry the same punch, especially when you see one play out at least every match. I also don't like them mechanically. They reward shit players as they can still build their meters even if they're getting their ass handed to them. This is a large issue that needs to be addressed. Why do so many modern fighting games now have stupid fucking attacks that take no skill to execute yet deal substantial damage? Pressing 2 triggers at the same time is not as hard as 6 or 7 hit combos, yet it deals much more damage. This is simply pandering to a casual audience and it's insulting. I'm not even a fighting game guy and I don't like it. Unfortunately, I simply can't talk about Mortal Kombat X without talking about the DLC and microtransactions. It's bad. It's really bad. Locking Goro away as a pre-order bonus was already a scumbag move as it punished gamers for choosing to wait, but the microtransactions are damn near unforgivable. I don't give a fuck what excuses you try to use in defense of microtransactions in retail price games. You cannot sway me on this. Microtransactions have no place in full price games, plain and simple. I've discussed this in multiple videos at length and I'm not going to explain it again. Being able to pay to unlock all crypt items instead of earning the gold to unlock them is just a prime example of how intrusive and unfair microtransactions can be, because unlocking all the crypt items through playing is going to take you a very long time. And crypt items aren't all cosmetic either. You can discover secondary fatalities, easy fatalities, and brutalities in the fucking crypt. And this easy fatality shit is so stupid. Even as a non-fighting game fan, I found Mortal Kombat X to be extremely condescending at times. What's the fun in using a fatality if you only need to press 2 buttons to make it happen? And the fact that you can just skip difficult fights in the story mode and the challenge tower blows my mind. That said, I feel this is just an inherent issue plaguing the fighting game genre. Part of the reason why I generally avoid modern fighting games is because they often feature the worst DLC models, and the reason why I have no respect for the fighting game community is because it's their fault that these models continue to be implemented and continue to make money. However, with all of that said, Mortal Kombat X is still a really good fighting game. It's polished, consistently fun to play, varied and surprisingly content rich, despite the aforementioned issues. Unfortunately, the microtransactions and day one DLC are hard to overlook, and greedy business models such as this shouldn't be supported. Whether that extends to simply not paying for the microtransactions or boycotting the game outright would depend on what you personally believe is right. Obviously, you shouldn't pre-order games or buy microtransactions anyway, but if those are enough to sway you from purchasing the game entirely, it's not like you're acting irrationally.